On today's Performance TV, we hit the road, specifically to the Smoky Mountains of Tennessee, to visit No Limit Engineering, where, you guessed it, there's no limit to what they can do to improve the handling of your ride. For this episode, this intrepid team is going to upgrade a stock truck chassis with modern suspension, so hang on.
Welcome to Performance TV, where we are on location in Dandridge, Tennessee at No Limit Engineering. Today on the show, we're going to take you on a tour of their facility where they manufacture chassis and suspension components for all sorts of hot rods, specializing in the classic truck. But that's not all they make here. Isn't that right, Kathy?
You are exactly right, Tommy. And just like the name states, they're not limited to, say, just trucks. You know, like you see here behind me, Camaros, Mustangs, and so much more. And when you start a new business, a lot of times there's a very interesting story, and there is with No Limit Engineering. And for more on that, here's Tommy.
Well, I've caught up with Rob McGregor, the owner of No Limits. And Rob, you've been in the business of building chassis and suspension components for a lot of years. How'd you get involved in it?
Well, I was into hot rodding as a kid with my dad, and we were mostly into horsepower stuff. And one day, en route to a college class, I had a near accident in a 56 Chevy truck that I owned, and that prompted me to think that maybe there was more to suspension and brakes and steering than there was to horsepower, so I kind of changed my direction. Yeah,
handling and being able to stop is pretty important. Now, this good-looking truck right here is your own vehicle. It's a race truck. What do you race it in?
We do Optima, USCA, Good Guys Autocross, and some SCCA stuff.
I see a lot of stickers and awards on this truck. You've had some success in this thing.
We've won the Good Guys Pro Truck Championship 3 times, their overall Pro National Championship last year. We've run the Truck and Throwdown a few times in it and a bunch of other events.
Well, you know suspension pretty well then. Now you use this truck when you do race it as a test bed and kind of experiment what you learn in suspension and how things work, and then you can adapt that over to your other products.
The front of this truck, although it's built a little bit different, it has the same geometry as our wide ride IFS, which we sell to our truck customers. The rear of it is a R&D piece with a torque arm, but we use that actually for development and on a lot of our Mustang kits.
Right, so you can take all the information you learn in racing, adapt it over to your street versions, and also some of the race vehicles you do manufacture.
That's right. Everything that we sell and help our customers with is something that we've already tested, and we've worked all the bugs out of it. We know it's a good performing item.
Right, plus you get to go racing and have a little fun at the same time. Not only building chassis all week, you get to go play on the weekend.
Right, not a bad way to run a business.
Well, let's see what Kathy's run into. She's wandering around the shop somewhere. What do you got, Kathy?
Well, you know, Tommy, as I roam around here at the shop at No Limit Engineering, I'm finding out they're doing a whole lot more here than just chassis and suspensions. And Rob, I'm seeing some fuel tanks here.
Yeah, of course, we make tanks for all the classic trucks, which we have for years, and we've expanded our line in the past few years to into the more of the car market. We have 55 to 57 Chevy, the early Mustangs, and first-gen Camaros.
But you didn't go just off of the basic pattern. You've got a lot of extra little tweaks that you've done inside.
Right, they're all different than stock inside and out. These tanks are baffled and cross-baffled. We have fuel flaps so that the inlet can't spit gas back out.
Oh, you like it used to all the time? Yeah. And you have your pumps, too.
Right, we make our own pump assemblies for all the injected conversions in LS motors, things like that. And these use the factory Chevrolet style pump, and the spring-loaded housing that we make keeps the fuel sock right against the floor of the tank.
Okay.
So that they never fuel starve, and we make them so they can just drop into our tanks so that anybody that's running an injected motor, we can upgrade the tank for them and get a pump in there for them. And these fit below the floor, there's no bubbling. One of the things we do is a lot of these tanks are a little narrower than stock tanks. So if you have a car with mini tubs or something, you can still get big exhaust past the tank.
Oh gosh, yeah. And like you said, you have them for all different trucks too?
Yeah, we cover all the classic trucks from the 40s up to the 70s, Fords and Chevys. And everything is made in-house. So all the baffling work is all done here. Our welders put it all together, and you know, they're all pressure tested.
What if somebody needed something custom?
We can do customs. We have about a dozen tanks that are production tanks, but if somebody needed something just for their own custom vehicle, they can send us a print and we can build it for them.
I like that. You can build a lot of things, which that's what we're going to do when we come back here on Performance TV.
This edition of Performance TV, presented by ARP, is being brought to you by EvapoRust, super safe rust remover. Liberty Engine Parts, distributor of performance, marine, agricultural, industrial, and OEM replacement engine parts and supplies. Carpenter Industries, Ford restoration parts since 1970. And by ARP, the world leader in fastener technology.
Welcome back to Performance TV. Here at No Limit Engineering, what they're known for is their chassis. Now, Rob, this is a Big Ten chassis. This thing's massive. This thing is really cool looking. Tell me a little bit about this chassis.
Well, these are our Big Tens for the classic truck market from about 47 to about 1960 or so, Fords and Chevys. We kind of came up with a design as a total departure from a stock chassis.
It doesn't look anything like a stock chassis, and this big X in the middle, I mean, that's got to be really strong.
It's really rigid, provides a lot of features as drive shaft and safety loops and things like that, but it keeps the truck from flexing, so the drive quality is better and the performance and handling is increased.
Plus, it's going to allow the suspension to really work well. Without the frame moving around, the suspension can do its job.
Exactly. If we can keep the chassis platform rigid, then the suspension is easily tunable to get 100% of the performance out of it.
I mean, Big Ten, how'd it get its name?
Well, the rail is exactly 10 inches tall, and we came up with that by measuring all of the bodies we were going to try to put on these and finding out how much space we could get it. And surprisingly, as big as it looks, none of this hangs down below the factory body at all.
It looks heavy to me. What's the weight difference on a stock chassis versus something like this?
Well, when these are completely done as rollers, these are about 30 pounds heavier than a stock chassis, but the mass is carried in the center of the truck and the suspension is lighter, so we have less unsprung weight and more rigidity. And there's a piece of the X member, you can pick it up.
It looks beefy and it looks really heavy, but it's not that heavy. It's pretty light, actually. I kind of like the looks. It looks kind of cool as well.
They're kind of cool looking. We really like them. Getting the platform to stay rigid, you know, the doors fit all the time, the hoods close even. The drive down the road, the floor's not bouncing around. It's a lot quieter, it's a lot smoother. The chassis is doing its job. It's just a better platform.
You build these for Chevys and Fords. We got one in the jig here. Which model is this?
Well, at this point, it can be a lot of things because we built these on a modular design. So up to this point, this can fit anything 47 to 59 Chevys or 48 to 60 Fords. It's when we put the front rails and develop the front axle center line with the front suspension and start putting all the body mounts and bed mounts and everything on it that it becomes its own.
You've put a lot of thought into this and a lot of detail. When the customer gets this, they're ready to put their body on it and go.
If you just build a chassis, you don't know about all the other things. But as you build trucks like we have for the past 30 years, we know that, you know, you got to have a battery somewhere and you got to have a brake pedal in it and you got to have a place for a proportioning valve and a check valve. And, you know, it sounds ridiculous, but these two holes are for the proportioning valve for the brakes.
Well, this looks great, but Rob, I'm going to send you over to see Kathy. She's got a chassis that they've already got the suspension. You get a little better view of what you're going to get.
Well, Tommy, I found another example of one of No Limit Engineering's Big Ten chassis. This one for a 1956 Ford that is a lot farther along here than the one that you were looking at with Tommy, Rob.
So this is complete up in the front. It's got all the body mounts and bumper mounts on it. This is our wide ride front suspension. This is what we use in our standard truck builds, and it also goes on our Big Ten chassis.
Everybody get the air ride?
It's an option for the customer. So if they want air ride, we use the Ride Tech Shockwaves. If they didn't want air ride, we would have installed a Ride Tech single adjustable billet coilover. And we can also do these in the triple adjustable for the guys looking for more performance.
And I know that you offer quite a few too with the braking system.
Yeah, now our standard brake is a 12-inch drilled and slotted rotor with a GM caliper. This one's been upgraded to a 4-piston caliper. We can also go to 13 or 14-inch aftermarket brakes with 4 or 6-piston calipers.
And even a lot of choices with the steering racks.
Right, now they all start with power steering rack and pinion. These are T-Bird style racks. We can upgrade to the Flaming River billet racks or some of the other aftermarket road race racks, depending on what the customer wants.
Wow, and I've heard that you've got cars all over the world.
Right, we send a lot of chassis to Australia and into Europe and Ireland, and all those are right-hand drive, so we can convert this to right-hand drive and put the pedals on the right side and the whole deal.
Well, Rob, a lot going on the front, definitely a lot going on back here. Many different choices?
Yeah, we have a lot of different choices, and some are not choices. They all come with the trailing arm rear suspensions on the Big Ten chassis, but we can set them up with Air Ride Technology Shockwave like this, or we can put a coilover in it.
It's an odd way to bolt that together.
Right, well, it's called a cantilever or a rocker arm. We have a big billet aluminum bearing receiver here, and there's a pin for the rocker arm. And what this allows us to do is we get 8 inches of axle travel out of a 5-inch stroke shock.
Really, let me see that. Wow. That is definitely a lot of movement. What else do you need to do to kind of get this thing buttoned up?
Well, this has the tank in it, and we can plumb the fuel lines. All of our chassis come with a Mosier 9-inch forward rear axles. We can put brakes on them, we can put gear sets in them, the panhard rod is in place. So we can make it really a turnkey deal.
Well, how about the choice of maybe being able to do one at home?
We do have a lot of suspension kits that can fit on the stock chassis, and we can show you that.
Oh, I think I like that. Well, you know what? We're going to have that coming up next here on Performance TV.
Welcome back to Performance TV on location at No Limit Engineering. And Rob, this isn't a No Limit frame. This is a factory frame, but you have a kit that goes with this. What kind of frame is it?
Well, this is a 70 Chevy truck. They're pretty much the same, 63 to 72. And we make a lot of kits to update production stuff, 47 to 59 Chevys and early F-100s and even old Mercurys.
Now, you were telling me about short beds are kind of pricey and may not be as many of them around nowadays. So you can buy the old truck, put on your rear suspension, your frame, and then get a bed somewhere and you got a short bed truck.
Right, this was a long bed chassis and we cut it off about 6 inches behind the rear cab mount. And we're going to use one of our rear rail kits to convert it to a short bed chassis.
Now, Rob, now this is your front suspension kit for the C10 pickups. And I mean, this is a big kit. This comes with a little bit of everything.
Yeah, it really has everything that the installer is going to need to finish the job. It's our wide ride IFS crossmember, and it comes complete with everything they need, the A-arms, the spindles, the complete brake system, the rack, tie rod ends, coilovers, all the hardware instructions, even comes with a DVD to show you how to do it.
Well, that's pretty neat. You know, and there's not a lot of questions. It's one part number. You might ask a few questions about engine and a few things like that, correct?
Right. We want to get the spring rate to match the bolt pattern. A few questions, but it's an easy process.
Right, and this is something we can do at home. We have some footage of your guys putting one of these together today on a frame. Walk me through the process and what steps it would take for a guy to do that in his garage.
It's a bolt-in, there's no welding required. The stock front suspension on a C10 unbolts, and this goes back in pretty much the same place. The crossmember goes in first and locates on a couple of original holes. So you line those up and bolt it in. Then there's a few you have to drill. And then there's a brace assembly that fits into the chassis that ties into the motor mounts to help stiffen everything up.
It's going to be even stronger than your original frame to begin with.
Even stronger, yep. Once that's in place, you bolt in the lower control arm. The upper control arm goes into our cam assembly, which is a pretty trick deal. You can rotate the cam to change the camber, and you can slide the cam forward and back with the A-arm to change the caster, so it's a nice adjustment feature.
Yeah, that's something you didn't have on the factory one.
Get the spindles bolted into place.
Now, is it factory spindles or are these aftermarket spindles?
Well, it's an aftermarket spindle that we make. It's sort of a clone of a late model Impala cop car with the big 12-inch brakes. We've repositioned the steering arm to get a better acronym out of the suspension to make them turn better. Put the rack mounts into the rack and bolt that into place and set in the tie rod end. The kit comes with all the rotors and calipers, so you would pack the bearings like you would on a normal brake job and put the rotors on, bolt in the calipers. Then the last thing you'll do is put the sway bar on.
So bolting all this on the frame, it's no welding, got a couple holes to drill, but anybody that's got mechanical knowledge can just simply bolt all this onto their original frame.
That's correct.
Well, I mean, this is a neat process, something everybody can do in their home. When we come back after this with more Performance TV, we're going to show you how to turn your long bed into a short bed.
This edition of Performance TV, presented by ARP, is being brought to you by Rod End Supply. We don't just sell them, we race them. AutoSecure. Be sure with AutoSecure. Stage 8, the world's best locking fastener. And by BenPack, providing automotive service solutions.
Welcome back to Performance TV as we continue our visit at No Limit Performance in Dandridge, Tennessee. We've shown you all kinds of great things here today, but you know they have to get started somewhere on the design. And that's what the folks here at No Limit do. They start off with designing their pieces in their CAD program. And the one that we're looking at is for something brand new that they're doing. As we'd mentioned earlier, it's not just about trucks here at No Limit. No, getting into Camaros, other vehicles as well. And what we have here is a subframe for a first-gen Camaro, 67 through 69. I even hear hints they might be working on some other ones coming up down the road. You never know what's going to be happening here at No Limit. But what's cool and what they do is they design their pieces and they want to make sure that they're going to be right before they start getting into using the expensive steel to cut everything. So they start off making their pieces with some thinner aluminum. Then they don't feel quite as bad throwing away their test patterns. You can see all kinds of other pieces that they've cut that are going to go into the subframe here up front, their original test pieces. I mean, there's a lot of time, hours, and I'm sure some blood, sweat, and tears that goes into designing some of the great pieces they have here at No Limit. You know something else they've designed that's really great? What Tommy and Rob have been doing over here with our truck conversion.
Well, Rob, one of the neater chassis kits I saw that you had that I really liked was when you can take your long bed truck and make it a short bed truck. What's all that kit come with?
Well, it's the two new formed rails, and these are short bed length, 4 inches higher than stock. 3 new cross members to put into place, all the hardware, the bed mount stands, and all the bracing that you need.
Yeah, and I see a new cross member here that you replace your factory one?
Yeah, this is the C10 mid cross member, and we use that to replace it to gain more ground clearance.
Not only the frame, but it also comes with suspension. What kind of components?
Right, this is one of our fat bar 4 links, and this is an outboard setup. And it's a complete package again with the front 4-bar mounts, the rear 4-bar mounts onto the housing, all the links, the panhard rod, coilovers and coilover mounts, all the hardware. We can also set them up with a new Mosier axle and housing, everything they're going to need to complete the project.
We watched the guys earlier put one of these together. Walk me through the steps of converting a long bed into a short bed.
First thing, you're going to take your long bed frame and cut it off about 6 inches behind the cab mounts. And rather than try to put this on piece at a time, you're going to build the whole rear subframe together, and it's a pretty easy piece. It's like a big erector set. Since everything is CNC cut and formed, it's pretty accurate. So you bolt the cross members into the new rails. And square everything up, and once you have that assembly put together, then you put that onto the back of your frame. And it does line up with a couple of existing holes, so that's how you locate it.
Right, then once you get the frame built, then you can start attaching the suspension in the back.
Right, and since we make all the components, we can make sure that all the holes are already there to make it an easier install. So you would start by bolting the front 4-bar brackets to the chassis. If you order a housing from us, it's going to come with all the brackets already welded on it. But if you're using the old housing that came with your truck and rear axle, you fit up and have to weld those brackets on. The bars get set to length and get bolted into place, and then you can adjust the pinion angle, bolting your panhard rod to the bottom of the chassis. You would use the panhard rod to center the axle housing side to side. In this case, we're going to use some Ride Tech billet coilovers. You would bolt those into place. If it's air ride, you would bolt the shockwaves into place.
Once you get all that done, you've got a frame ready to go. Now you've got a short bed frame instead of a long bed.
Right, and since we're doing all these packages, we're going to have new front suspension, better ground clearance up front, new rear rails with a higher kick to get it to sit down low. The new cross member will go in, pick up the ground clearance, and all the new rear suspension to make it ride and handle great.
Now you got an old truck, look, rides like new.
That's it.
Man, it is such a busy place here at No Limit Engineering, and as we've really enjoyed being able to show you all the cool stuff that they have going on here, from the chassis and a lot of the cool stuff that they also have in their catalog. I mean, they're making all kinds of things here. This is just one of many of their billet dash inserts that they have to choose from. They also have motor mounts, tranny mounts for lots of different makes and models, shock relocator kits, and of course, how nice is it to be able to go to Power Brakes? Every time I get a chance to go to a car show and I see the really cool trucks that have the tilted hoods, well, they have the tilt hood kits here for both Ford and for Chevy. Plus, they have a huge catalog here, because I was only just scraping the surface of what they have. You want to find out more, you can check out their website at nolimit.net or pick up a copy of their catalog. Well, that's just about going to wrap up our time here at No Limit Engineering. It's been a wonderful day, so you know what? Let's check in one more time with Tommy and Rob.
Well, I hope you've enjoyed your tour of No Limit Engineering and all the chassis and suspension products they make. Rob, it's been an outstanding visit, but you got something new with your race program?
Yeah, and this year, we're going to continue to expand our chassis program and the new Camaro stuff, but we're taking the famous red Hellboy and we're going to wrap it in hot pink.
You're going to race it in hot pink?
Hot pink. So not only are people going to be upset because I get beat by a truck, but they're going to get beat this year by a pink truck. And we're doing that to raise money for the Komen Breast Cancer Foundation. So they can go on our website at nolimit.net. They can check us out on Facebook at No Limit Engineering, or they can go on to Komen's website and make a donation.
Man, that sounds great. Or they can come to the track and watch it.
Come and watch us race, man.
Well, that's all we've got for this week's Performance TV. Join us next time.